Welcome to Watkins Glen International, the Finger Lakes region of New York. Watkins Glen, New York, one of the most famed race venues in the world. Opened in 1948 in the town of Watkins Glen, New York. Hosted Formula One racing back in 1961. Stock cars were here in 1957. Buck Baker won the very first NASCAR race at this track. They came back in 1964 and 65. And then for good in 1986. Bush Pole qualifying is underway. Joe Fox in the number 0 car. Down the front stretch on this demanding road course. Hi, everybody. Good Saturday morning to you. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'm Steve Burns alongside Larry McReynolds and Jeff Hammond. Now, this is the first time the Busch Series has been back to Watkins Glen since 2001. And for the first time in NASCAR history, there will be 2 road course events in the same season. We were at Mexico City back in March, so it's a difficult weekend. Also, rain washed out one of the practices yesterday.
Steve, when you talk about difficulties, when you come to a place like Watkins Glen, it's not like Sonoma, it's not like Mexico City. This place is fast, and I'm talking about when you go down this long straightaway, you already saw Joe Fox go off in turn 1, got wide. You've got to have the right kind of braking. You got to know how to hit your marks and downshift at the right point. You can get yourself in trouble in a real easy way, very fast at Watkins Glen.
We have 53 cars here. That means 30 is locked in. 23, they have to qualify on time. We had weather in here yesterday. Of those 23 cars, 6 of those cars, including our own Wally Dallenbach, did not even get any practice time on the racetrack. Their first lap on this racetrack this weekend is going to be when they make their qualifying run. And just to add to it, we have all the Busch Series regulars trying to chase a championship. We have about 13 Nextel Cup drivers, and just like in Nextel Cup, we have those road race ringers.
Morris Set is in this race. Scott Pruitt, Ron Fellows. Scott Pruitt, in fact, has the track record. And Larry, you mentioned double duty. How about names like Ryan Newman, Elliott Sadler, Dale Jarrett, Tony Stewart?
Yeah.
Well, this is the first time that the Nextel Cup Cars has done a impound road course race. So those guys are just trying to get that extra seat time this afternoon in the Busch Series race where they can get a little bit of a feel for what this racetrack is going to be like before the Nextel Cup race tomorrow.
And just 5 races remain in the chase for the Nextel Cup. So that's why those guys are getting that extra seat time here. Brent Sherman in the number 10 car for PPC Racing. Next up. And let's talk about, Jeff, you talked about Brent Sherman wiggling there. Let's talk about how road courses are different. This is a fast racetrack.
It really is. You saw Brent Sherman once again coming down into turn 1. You carry a lot of speed down this front straightaway. But as you get going into that turn 1, you got a downshift right there, hard on the brakes, make that turn. Now we see him come up through the S's. Now he's headed down the long back straightaway, one of the fastest parts of the racetrack, into what they call the bus stop. A little chicane. You go through there to kind of decelerate. This place was even faster when we used to go straight down the back straightaway. They took that out to try to make for safety reasons. But again, hitting your marks, things are happening so fast, and actually he's catching up on the cars that are getting ready to make the 3rd car out, and I think that's going to create a problem here for Brent Sherman. I don't think NASCAR is going to be real happy about that.
That's essentially a moving chicane, Larry.
It really is.
Well, it is. If nothing else, it's a distraction with Brent Sherman out there in front of him. And unlike most qualifying sessions on an oval where you get 2 laps, it's only 1 lap qualifying here. And this is really going to be a distraction for him here. I mean, they're trying to roll this qualifying session along just as quick as possible because we have Nextel Cup qualifying coming up. We have the Busch Series race, but I think they rolled that yellow car just.
Yeah, that was Kerry Earnhardt, I believe, in a 73 car, and he's one of the cars that didn't get any practice early on yesterday, so that was his first time on the racetrack, and I'm sure Kerry's trying to get some heat in the brakes and get everything kind of acclimated after NASCAR sent him out. So got to wait and see what NASCAR decides to do here with Brent Sherman's time.
Yeah, and that is not a good situation for Brent Sherman, and they've got to take care of that. We'll take a break and come back here to the Watkins Glen International Raceway. You're watching Speed. Speed Channel's coverage of NASCAR Busch Series qualifying from Watkins Glen International is brought to you by Garnier Fructis Style. Unleash your style. And by Verizon. We never stop working for you. Busch Pole qualifying is underway here at Watkins Glen. Joe Fox and Brent Sherman, the first drivers to clock in. Meanwhile, let's check in with Dave Burns down on pit road.
And as you might expect, championship leader Martin Truex was watching that little start of qualifying with some interest. You and Bono got it figured out so that doesn't happen to you?
Hopefully. That wouldn't be good. You know, we've got a good car, and we don't want to get held up by somebody in the qualifying. So that was kind of weird. Hopefully they got it straightened out.
Sometimes it takes one of those to make sure the system's flowing well. You got Randy LaJoie in front of you. I think former champion, he can figure this out, right?
Yeah, everybody here will be okay. From here on out, they'll have it straight. We'll be good to go with our best Pro Chevrolet. And hopefully we got a shot at the front row here.
You guys were very good yesterday in practice, right?
Yeah, we were car was really good, real fast, drove real good. So I look forward to today. I haven't raced here in a couple years, but I used to really enjoy it. And by far the best car I've ever had here. So real excited about it.
Raced here in his Busch North car as well. Way back when, guys?
Yeah, 3 times, Dave. Is also the fastest in practice and won the road race at Mexico City. And just to clear up the earlier confusion, NASCAR will allow Brent Sherman to take another lap. Kerry Earnhardt has completed his. Elliott Sadler's on the racetrack.
Now, Brent Sherman, he is locked into the show, but qualifying's so important here. You know, you don't want to start back there about 40th or 43rd. You want to start just as high as you possibly can, and Brent Sherman was 25th quickest in practice yesterday.
That's huge at a racetrack like this, Larry, and you know that it's very hard to pass, and this is going to be kind of difficult for a lot of these guys, especially a young man like Brent Sherman with limited road race experience. We take a look here right now on the racetrack, the 08 of Elliott Sadler. This weekend, Robert Yates Racing has brought 2 cars here to the Glen. We see him get just a little bit wide through that corner. Yesterday during practice, so he wheel hopped through the bus stop area, I believe, and spun that car around and did a lot of damage to it. So let's see if these guys were able to effect repairs on that 08 and get him up there to the top of the field here. Let's see how he does. And he is the quickest right now. It's been out on the racetrack.
Yeah, even before that crash, Jeff, yesterday, he was 7th quickest in 1:13.79. And he actually has slowed down just a little bit from that yesterday.
Let's see what happened to Brent Sherman as we talked about before the commercial break. There, the yellow car of Kerry Earnhardt trying to stay out of Sherman's way.
And Kerry at that time was trying to get up to speed to make his qualifying run. And what had happened where he'd been released at on the racetrack, the 2 guys wound up getting too close together. NASCAR is trying to, like I say, speed up qualifying here. It's a long, winding road course. They're trying to space cars out, but that time it didn't work very well.
So Sadler heads to the garage. He has turned in by far the fastest speed, 114.304 miles per hour. Jamie McMurray in his 64 car heads out. This is an important, I think, race for Elliott Sadler. He's dropped out of the top 10 in points in recent weeks, and he needs to have a good finish here. So the Busch race should help his Cup effort.
Well, I think this is an important weekend for Robert Yates Racing across the board because Dale Jarrett, the 88 car, is just inside the top 10. Elliott Sadler is now back to 12th, and I think that's another one of the reasons, with it being an impound weekend, they decided to run both those guys in the Busch Series race here this weekend.
Take a look right there at Elliott Sadler, but Jamie McMurray in the 64 car. But like Elliott Sadler, he's one of the NASCAR regulars, I think, Cup regulars that we're seeing over here this weekend, trying to get a little bit more seat time, as we talked about, Larry, early on. How important, getting your rhythm down and getting into that kind of flow for driving a road course, how important it is, and seat time is the only way to get that.
He was 18th quickest in the practice yesterday.
His best start in 2 Cup races here, 14th.
Looked good getting down into turn 1 and head in that little short chute area as we go up through the S's here. One of the faster parts of the racetrack.
This team had a good run at IRP last week. Finished 10th with Mike Wallace, Rusty's brother. Of course, Rusty Wallace, the owner of this car. This is one of the few places on the racetrack where the guys go to high gear. This is a very long back straightaway. And you talked about this earlier through the inner loop or the bus stop. Kind of got to get a rhythm through there where you're turning to the right, back left, back right again.
Time to time, the cars, the way they hit the bumps there. And fortunately, I think they've cut that bump down quite a bit. Guys used to almost get airborne through that part of the racetrack from time to time when they turned in a little too quick. Hard on the brakes there. See the nose really dive down on the racetrack.
Jamie is 11th in Nextel Cup Series points heading into tomorrow's race.
He completes his lap. Goes to the top of the charts. Minute 14.874. So that puts Jamie in the 64 car on the pole.
Dave Burns.
With Reed Sorensen in the midst of a championship battle. Hey, Reed, taking one lap only is a little bit tough. Yesterday in your 13 laps of practice, did you go out one at a time and try to get a rhythm for a one-lap run?
No, actually, I was trying to get as many laps out here as I could. It's a challenge here for myself. I'm not a road course specialist by any means, but it seemed like to me, I mean, if I could run my sixth lap would be my best. So I don't know what that means for qualifying. I don't know if that's bad, but last night I was dreaming about my qualifying lap, making sure I could get the most out of each corner. So we're out here just trying to have fun. If we can get a top 10 out of the whole day today, we'll be pretty happy. And I just got to do the best job I can, and I'm learning more every time I go out there. So just do the best job we can.
And hopefully, Reed's dream will come true. John Roberts.
Hey, Dave, we're with Elliott Sadler. Elliott didn't stay on the top of the speed chart for very long, but were you happy with that lap?
No, I wrecked this car yesterday, and the tracks either changed a bunch or we bent some when I wrecked it. I was way too loose and about wrecked it each and every corner that time. So we tried to do a tribute car, the M&M's UPS car, and I messed it up a little bit yesterday. And I don't know if that'll be fast enough to get us in the field or not, but we'll have to wait and see what everybody else does.
Very tricky lap, though, out there, whether it's practice or qualifying, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's a lot of different turns, and you're trying to get all you can get out of it. And I just made a driver mistake yesterday, and I'm paying for it today.
All right, Elliott Sadler, thanks a lot. You know, guys, Elliott Sadler has this car beat up a little bit on the back, but he's trying to get out there and get as many laps as possible on this racetrack this weekend.
But, John, I just don't know that it's all Elliott or all the race car, because even Jamie McMurray, who is on the pole right now, slowed down a significant amount from practice yesterday. This racetrack got washed down hard yesterday. Then they ran the Grand Am Series race on it, which kind of puts a different rubber down on the racetrack. So these guys have a totally different racetrack from what they practiced on yesterday for a lot of reasons.
Michael Waltrip heads out, and we should mention that Tony Stewart ran in that Grand Am Rolex race here last night. Didn't have a good night, finished 37th, but he will be the last driver to attempt to qualify.
Now, Michael goes to the top of charts, and Jeff, I think this track will get better and better as this session goes on, as more of the Busch cars put some rubber down on the racetrack.
I believe it will, and Michael actually, Larry, is still just a tick slower than what he practiced at yesterday. Also spoke to him this morning, and he said car felt pretty good, didn't have a lot of practice time. He only got 5 laps of practice in, but it seemed like they were kind of positive. So right now he is at the top of our charts, and I believe Dave Burns is standing by with another one of our competitors. Dave?
Yeah, one of the guys, one of the few guys that has a lot of laps here in a Busch Series race car. Ashton, what did it feel like coming back here now?
It's pretty exciting. I was looking forward to it. I was so upset when they took it off the schedule last, like 4 years ago, that we came here and tested for 2 days, had a great test, and was really excited about getting back here, and I went to leave the garage for the first time and got knocked in the side and knocked the side off before we ever got on the racetrack. So we only have 4 laps on the racetrack, but we're still 4th quickest, and I think this Team Marine Sport's going to have a good day today.
So this little ding down here, is that worth a 10th or 2 maybe?
I hope so. I couldn't believe it when it happened. And like I said, we were so excited about getting back here after a great test, and we weren't planning on doing mini laps, but we didn't want to do it this way. But it was the guys just really buckled down. They knew they had a great race car, didn't lose their cool, showed a lot of composure, and it was a very, I guess, growing weekend for us, and they did a great job, and just looking forward to the rest of it today.
Ashton has 5 previous starts here at the Glen.
J.J. Yaley on the racetrack. Thank you, Dave Burns. Michael Waltrip has turned in the fastest lap.
J.J. was 23rd quickest yesterday, making his first career start here with actually very little road course experience. Another one of the teams that came up here and tested. Amazed at the number of Busch Series and Nextel Cup teams that came up here and tested in preparing for this race.
Larry, I read the combination of the 2 series, over 50 teams tested here, or 50 cars anyway.
Well over half.
So JJ's lap good enough for third of 7 drivers who have clocked in here on the 2.45-mile road course. And we check in with John Roberts.
Well, Steve here with Jamie McMurray. Jamie, you didn't like that lap very much.
No, just not a lot of grip. You know, nobody really got to make qualifying runs yesterday, but you know, you always want to blame it on the rubber or whatever that the Grand M cars maybe laid down last night. But just you know, pulled out the pits, and even on my warm-up lap going through the S's slow, I just could not get in the gas. We made a lot of changes, and the car was just really tight in practice yesterday. So we freed the car up a lot, and I think that the rain or the other rubber probably just kind of compounded our problem there. But fortunately, yesterday we were able to pass a lot in this car. So hopefully, if we don't qualify well, which I don't think we're going to, we'll be able to pass some cars.
All right, Steve, that's Jamie McMurray. Not too happy with the qualifying lap, but he says that car's going to run well once the race starts.
Johnny Sauter goes wide there in turn 1.
Real wide right there through turn 1, Steve. But listening to him downshifting and on the brakes getting into turn 1, the car didn't go up like he thought it would. It really shot him wide out across turn 1.
Johnny yesterday in practice was 30th quickest.
One other thing I want to point out too is we look down in turn 1. Again, he gets a little bit loose. We start into the inner loop there. The car looks very loose.
Especially under braking. It looks very loose under braking, which tells me they probably have a lot of rear brake cranked in it. You want to put as much rear brake as you possibly can where the car will turn under braking, but you can put so much it makes the car loose.
Makes the car get loose. But going down to turn 1 where he jumped over really the rumble strip right there, last year that would have been sand. Now it's been paved out through there, so he got a good break. Otherwise, he probably would be stuck out in the sand pit already.
Let me ask you boys this question. Seeing a lot of cloud cover roll in now, and although it is early here in the morning, just 9:20 Eastern Standard Time, the sun was out when we first got here. What will this cloud cover do, if anything, to the racetrack?
I'm not sure this early in the morning if it's going to make a huge difference, Steve. I think the sun would have had to really been out for a while, really heated the racetrack up before these cloud covers could be an advantage.
Johnny Sauter, second fastest to Michael Waltrip. 8 drivers have taken time on this 2.45-mile road course. More from Watkins Glen here on Speed. Randy LaJoie, the number 34 car, completes his qualifying run, good enough for 4th fastest. Michael Waltrip is the quickest. Now coming up next on Speed, it's Bud Pole qualifying from the Glen. Fresh off his win at Indy, Tony Stewart heads for the track where he's won 2 of the last 3 races. Bud Pole qualifying coming up next, live from Watkins Glen, only on Speed. And folks, Tony Stewart was the quickest in Cup practice yesterday. Let's go back to John Roberts.
Hey, Steve, Michael Waltrip is on top of the speed chart right now, but Michael, you said you had to take it pretty easy out there.
Yeah, we got bestwestern.com, the Best Western hotel chains on our car, and there's a bunch of them here. They're wandering around everywhere. And I made it one turn coming to the green, and I about spun out, and I said, whoa, they'll be really mad if I'm not in the race. So I just had to slow down. We were really pushing yesterday, and man, it was really loose today, and so I just drove conservatively. But John, it makes me feel real confident about the race because, you know, in the race you need to be free, and we're free right now, so I think that's going to pay off here in a little bit.
All right, that's Michael Waltrip, and Steve, you know, he's got to make this race on time. He's one of those guys who's also looking up at the clouds because they seem to be getting a little thick right now.
Yeah, they are, in fact, John. And the guy who is our points leader, our most recent winner in the NASCAR Busch Series, and the winner of the only other road course race this season in Mexico City, Martin Truex Jr. on the racetrack.
And Larry, I think we all have to say we were pretty surprised. Very impressed with Martin Truex's performance down in Mexico City as far as road racing is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, his crew chief, Kevin Mannion, made some great calls in the pits, did some early pitting, got those pit stops behind him, which I'm sure you'll see later on this afternoon as well as tomorrow in the Nextel Cup race. And those guys prevailed and won the race, and actually did a 2-day test up here, and he was the fastest in practice. So I'd say the numbers are pointing toward this 8 car.
And no surprise, guys, he's at the top of the chart once again.
And you heard him say he ran in the Busch North Series here, and of our top 4 in points, he's the only driver that has any type of a start here at this racetrack.
I was going to say he could make a move in this points race because Clint Boyer and Reed Sorensen pretty close behind him, but he could make a big move here. Dave Burns.
Here's a driver with a few starts here at the Glen in a Busch Series car. You excited to be back in this?
Oh, I'm loving it. I had 2 great practices yesterday, and the Cellular One Chevy is fast. Our Army Chevy's fast too, so should be a fun weekend.
Define a great practice for Joe Nemechek in a Busch car at Watkins Glen.
Well, I mean, we got the car doing what we wanted to do. We started out, we were a little bit on the tight side, and we made a couple adjustments. We've got a lot of cars running here this week, so I've got some guys from our Army team helping. Ryan Pemberton, my crew chief's kind of subbing in on my 87 car, so just a lot of stuff going on. But you know, when the cars drive good, it's fun. That's the bottom line, and Martin Truex just laid down a pretty good lap, so we'll see if we can get him.
Larry, you heard what Joe said. He's got people. Joe has people all over the place for him.
He has an army of people.
He does have an army of people, that's right.
Joe Nemechek won the pole here back in 1997, and you know, Reed finished 14th at Mexico, but that doesn't tell the story. He had a very good run on that road course for a 19-year-old rookie.
He had definitely a top 5 run going, and things kind of went sour for him there in the end, but for his first road course start, had an awfully strong run. And his crew chief, Brian Patty, has a few wins here with a gentleman by the name of Ron Fellows in the Busch Series as well as the Craftsman Truck Series.
And watching this race car as it goes around the track, it's looking, in my opinion, the best of anybody's been out there so far. Now, he may be pacing himself, but the car is very smooth. It looks like he's able to hit the marks, back in the throttle aggressively. Looks very good. Let's see what kind of time he can put down for this young rookie.
He was 11th quickest in practice yesterday afternoon, and he goes to 3rd quickest, minute 14:74. So he has slowed down, though, about 3/4 of a second, which seems to be pretty consistent.
And we should mention Chip Ganassi announced yesterday that he will be driving the 41 Cup Series car next year and full-time in the Busch Series.
But Casey Mears, who drives the 41 now, his option, 1-year option, has been renewed, so we know he will be driving for Chip Ganassi as well.
And Casey Mears will have that sponsor, Home 123, on his race car.
So the moral of the story, Ganassi will have 4 Nextel Cup teams next year.
Yes, he will. Martin Truex Jr. is the quickest of 11 to have clocked in here at Watkins Glen. More Busch Pole qualifying just ahead. Good lap for Chris Cook in that number 7 car, the 33-year-old former road racing mentor to Tony Stewart. Good enough for 2nd quickest, right behind Martin Truex Jr. Let's go back to John Roberts.
Well, Steve, Martin Truex Jr. coming into this thing was fastest in testing, fastest in practice, so you might assume he would be on the pole. Right now he's on top of the speed chart, but still Martin not really happy with what went on out on the racetrack.
No, not at all. You know, our car was really good yesterday, and we thought going out kind of early might be okay, but it wasn't that good. I don't know if it was the cars that ran last night with their rubber or the temperature difference or what else, but the track just doesn't have any grip in it. I mean, I'm happy with my lap. It was a good lap. I hit all my marks. I didn't make any mistakes, but I just didn't have the grip I had yesterday, and we slowed down a lot. So unfortunate, but hopefully everybody else will slow down too. We'll have to wait and see.
All right, Martin Truex, thanks a lot. You know, Steve, he is fastest on the chart right now. Not too happy with what's going on, but he is the guy in those top 3 in points who has the most experience in other series on this racetrack.
That's a fact, John. And Ashton Lewis Jr. on the racetrack is one of the best road racers of the regulars in the NASCAR Busch Series.
It's pretty good in practice, guys, but going down to turn 1 a minute ago, coming to take the green, he really smoked that front tires up on that right and left front of that car as they're going into turn 1.
Yeah, Ashton was 4th quickest in practice yesterday. Goes to 2nd quickest. Good lap. Considering what he looked very badly. Considering what he looked like going into turn 1, that's a pretty good lap.
Let's take a look at what happened. When we heard him say very, very badly, I'm guessing this is what he's talking about.
Well, he was talking about the stumbling, and I heard him say stumbling, the carburetor. But you see right, he really locked the front tires up. He almost spun that car out going down into turn 1.
And, Jeff, that's where you go from 3rd to 2nd gear. You're downshifting. I talked to Joe Nemechek, and he told me, Larry, the split in the transmission, the NASCAR mandates the transmission ratios just as they do at all the other racetracks and as they did at Mexico. In fact, it's the same ratios in Mexico. He said the split split is too much there, and you can almost get the car into a wheel hop because it's such a differential.
When you're talking about the split, explain that a little bit more if you could, Larry.
Well, again, you have the different ratios through the gearbox. In second gear is a 156. Third gear is a 120. So it's 36 points, and that's just too much. But NASCAR mandates the ratio, so you have no choice. So when you go from third to second, you tend to get the car in a wheel hop, a rear wheel hop, plus you're on heavy braking as well.
Carl Edwards in the number 60 car for Roush Racing. Moved up into 10th in the Nextel Cup point standings, doing double duty here.
Carl's one of the drivers that came up here and tested and ran into what I would consider the speed and the difficulty of the Glen. Actually wound up crashing the car up here in practice.
And even though he finished third in Mexico in the road race, what a couple of days he had, because he crashed his primary car. The minute they got up there in their backup car, they lost an engine, got the engine changed, made qualifying, and came back to finish third in that backup car. Let's see what Carl Edwards can do in this 60 car. Goes to second quickest. About a 1/10 and a half behind Martin Truex Jr. Good lap for Carl.
A good pickup from him.
Awesome, guys. That was a blast. Fastest lap I've gone here yet. A really good car.
Sounds like seat time may be paying off.
I was going to say practice makes perfect, but this goes to show you, Larry, even though they do not have a timer or anything inside these race cars, he knew how quick he was.
John Roberts standing by with Reed Sorensen.
Hey, Steve, you know, Reed Sorensen's the first guy who's gotten out of his car so far this morning and said, hey, that was at least a decent lap.
It would have been a decent race trim lap. I don't know, yesterday in practice, it seemed like it took me about 2 or 3 laps to get going, so this one qualifying lap deal sure didn't help me, but the car was just a little loose. The start of the S was there. Everyone else, it felt really good. You know, I'm not a road course guy, so I'm still learning about this stuff, and we never got to do a qualifying run yesterday because of the rain, so that didn't help either, but I'm looking forward to getting in the race there, and I think we'll be pretty good once the green flag drops.
All right, so Dave Burns, Reed Sorensen may not be a road course guy, but right now he's looking pretty good.
John standing by with Kenny Wallace. Been talking about a little wheel hop out there. You got all that trained out of the 22 car?
Well, we're working hard on it. You know, we ran the road race in Mexico City, and I was looking for a little more braking power. You know, there's a lot of new brakes out there, about $30,000 spent on brakes, but so I'm going to let off just a little bit earlier in one. After I've watched everybody, it looks to me like I'm driving in a little too hard. So Ashton Lewis did a great job. From my viewpoint, it looks like it was going to be a big wreck, and he ran a great lap. So got to be aggressive, but hit all your marks. So the AutoZone Ford is looking forward to getting a good run in.
It's a good thing about getting ready to go out down here, guys. All that they get to watch going into turn 1, what everyone else does, and they also have a Nextel vision in view, so they watch their laps.
Thank you, Dave. Denny Hamlin comes in here 6th in points.
Steve, Jeff, he was third quickest in practice yesterday. So let's see what Denny Hamlin in the 20 car can do.
And news out of the Joe Gibbs Racing Camp this week, Jason Leffler has been released, and Denny Hamlin and his Busch Series teammate J.J. Yaley will get some experience in that Cup car throughout the rest of the year with Terry Labonte. Denny Hamlin 4th quickest.
Good lap.
Martin Truex wasn't thrilled with his lap, but good enough to be the quickest right now of 14 drivers who have clocked in. Busch Bowl qualifying underway at Watkins Glen. Stacy Compton there in the 59. His time good enough for 10th. And also we should update you that Brent Sherman and Kerry Earnhardt both will be allowed to take another lap. NASCAR has allowed them to do so for the mix-up early in qualifying when both were on the track at the same time. And we check in with John Roberts.
Hey, Steve, you know, Carl Edwards is generally a happy guy, but right now he has a lot to smile about. Carl, you're ecstatic about that lap.
I'm so excited about that. I mean, our Charter Ford was just awesome there. And, I mean, you know, to be that close to Martin Truex's time, the Goodyears were great. I thought it had a ton of grip out there. I think Brad Parrott did some magic with the tire pressures, and that's just a great lap for me, man. I mean, that was cool. It's the fastest I've gone here by about a half a second since we've tested and been here for practice and everything, so I'm happy with it.
All right, that's a very happy Carl Edwards. We usually find him happy, but Dave Burns, he's happy also because when he came down here to test, he said he wrecked twice, not badly, but this car got dented up, they fixed it, and now it's fast once again.
We'll find out how happy Jeff Burton's going to be. Martin lays down to 73.45. You weren't near that yesterday. Any chance this morning?
Well, we were really tight yesterday, and we never got the car handling well until late on old tires. So I'm not going to say we have a shot at the pole or not. I don't know. We'll go out there and lay it down with Reese Chevrolet and see what it'll do. I'm pretty confident about it. I think we'll have a good race car, and I don't know. We'll go see here in about 15 minutes, I'll tell you.
Jeff Burton's going to do it. About 15 minutes from now, guys.
Mark Green is on the racetrack, Dave. He's got 4. Watkins Glen starts. Best finish of 15th.
Mark was 47th quickest in practice yesterday. This was actually the car, I think, that got together with Ashton Lewis Jr. in the 25 car in the garage area, actually before practice ever even started.
And he has to make it in on his speed.
See what Mark can do here. His first lap or his lap. 13th quickest, minute 16:49. It's gonna be a little borderline.
So Martin Truex Jr. still the quickest. As Busch Pole qualifying continues at Watkins Glen International. The all-time leader here in wins in the Busch Series. Do you know, Jeff Ham?
Current right now, probably Ron Fellows.
Actually, it's Terry Labonte with 4, but of active drivers, it is Ron Fellows with 3.
Ron Fellows right now, he's pretty much dominated here at the Glen in the Busch Series over the last few years. And you're correct when you say we watched Ron Fellows getting ready to make his qualifying lap, but Terry Labonte in the early years, he was kind of like Mr. Watkins Glen for many, many years, winning from the pole and really dominating. But this young man right here, I call him young man because I'm older than he is, but
they're all younger than you are.
Shut up. That hurts. Joe Nemechek. Be interested to see what Joe could do, because this morning before the drivers meeting, which NASCAR and all these teams already had the drivers meeting. This is an impound race, so they had the drivers meeting early this morning. But Joe was very much thinking that he could probably go up there and challenge Martin Truex for the pole.
Pole sitter here, 1997.
And this is actually the car that Ron Fellows drove in the Mexico road race. He drove this exact car for Joe Nemechek, the 87 car. Yeah, Joe was awfully quick in both Busch and Nextel Cup practice yesterday. He was 9th quickest here in the Busch Series, and Joe is a go-or-go-home car.
4th quickest in Cup practice.
The car looks awfully good. He's hustling around this racetrack pretty good.
Really got back the throttle hard right there.
It looks stable, you know, like he's not making a lot of smooth, very stable.
3rd quickest for Joe, minute 13:86.
So right now it's Martin Truex Jr., Carl Edwards, Joe Nemechek, Ashton Lewis Jr., and Denny Hamlin, but lots of fast drivers and fast cars headed your way. "35-year-old Matt Kobieluk from Uncasville, Connecticut, just turned in his qualifying run in the number 50 car.
Pretty awesome lap, Jeff, considering that's his first lap on the racetrack this weekend. He was one of those 6 cars we talked about, didn't get on there for practice.
Very impressive right there as we're taking a look at Brent Sherman, who gets an opportunity to make I guess you might call it do-over?
Yeah, this is exactly a do-over. Remember early in qualifying, Brent was trying to make his qualifying attempt when Kerry Earnhardt was on the track warming up at the same time, essentially getting in his way.
Now, the gamble here is the time that he had, that was locked in, and he's locked into the show. The gamble would be if something should happen on this qualifying lap. But, again, I think they knew that time, even though it was going to be locked in the show, was going to be way back in the pack, somewhere where you do not want to be.
No, to give himself a chance right here, I think they need to go and do this again. And to me, Larry, I think it's a plus because now he's kind of got his rhythm. He knows what's going on. He's with respect as far as the racetrack is concerned. So I think he can attack the racetrack a little more aggressively at certain points.
Larry, you said he's locked in. That number 10 car, PPC Racing, 30th in owner points, which is a little bit different than the Cup Series where the top 35 are locked in.
Just barely locked in, but locked in. But I think, Jeff, that's the big key. You just mentioned it. He knows what to expect out of this racetrack.
Hey, boys, you know who's next? Ron Fellows.
Oh.
As Larry likes to say, you better pull them belts tight. I promise you, he'll be going for it.
Business a pickup.
We had Ron Fellows on our trackside show at Sonoma, and he said this is his favorite racetrack because it's fast.
And the numbers back it up.
You got that right. 5 NASCAR wins here.
Not a very good lap there for Brent Sherman. In fact, he's the slowest of the 18 cars, minute 19:20, which is, well, now they just updated it.
Yeah, updated it. I was going to say, that was his lap he'd run previously, so he picked up almost 5 seconds right there, so well worth the effort right there from Brent Sherman. Good lap. Puts him all the way up to 8th place.
John Roberts?
Hey, Steve, Denny Hamlin is one of the guys who's happy with what went on out there on the racetrack. But, Denny, you told me just a second ago that you still had to be a little cautious after what you saw early in this qualifying session.
Yeah, I saw a lot of guys kind of slipping up. So I did it at Mexico in the very first turn of my qualifying lap, kind of messed it up. But I figured this time it's just be safe and run a nice, smooth lap. We tried to not get out of shape and told the crew guys we could have run 100 foot deeper into 1 and 100 foot deeper into 10, but it better be safe than sorry. You know, just get a good solid top 10, maybe 15 starting spot out of it and come out of here with a good finish.
All right, safety is a good thing sometimes on these road courses, Dave Burns. And also, Denny Hamlin's excited because this week he found out he's going to be running a lot of Cup Series races in October.
Catching up with Paul Wolf now in new colors this week for Fitz Bradshaw Racing. Paul, we've seen you in the 6 this year, the 40 last week. That obviously a Fitz Bradshaw car. What's the deal with you and this ride for the rest of the year?
Well, just, you know, I got to thank Armando and all his great sponsors for giving me the opportunity to get in a car after, you know, things just didn't work out with the 6 car. So, you know, these guys were looking to change some things around and give me an opportunity. And I just can't thank them enough. We real excited about this weekend. Weren't really as good as we wanted to be in practice, but this is kind of like coming home for me, and I have a lot of success in a Busch North car here. So hopefully we made a bunch of changes yesterday afternoon and see if they work out for us.
Thank you, Dave. One of the premier road racers in the world, Ron Fellows, in that number 43 car. 3 wins in the Busch Series, 2 wins here in a NASCAR Craftsman truck.
And he's actually finished second here twice in Nextel Cup race,
including last year.
And he's also settled a pole here a couple times, so he does know his way around this racetrack.
He was only 29th quickest in practice yesterday. And this is a go or go home car, so you almost get a feeling that Ron is just trying to get a good solid lap in.
He said yesterday, matter of fact, he told John Roberts on one of our NASCAR Live shows that top speed here approaches 180 miles an hour.
No doubt at the end of that backstretch before you go into the inner loop.
Business as usual lap for Ron Fellows right there, very smooth.
So Ron Fellows' time, good enough for 14th. As Larry Mack said, probably running a conservative lap.
Yeah, he actually slowed down almost a half a second from what he ran in practice yesterday.
Hey, tonight on Speed, don't miss the 45th annual Knoxville Nationals. Sprint cars go wheel to wheel to see who will reign as king of the dirt. The Knoxville Nationals tonight at 9, live and only on Speed. You boys ever been to that race?
I've driven a race car around that racetrack before. It is an awesome facility.
I went there in 1997, and I was blown away by that whole event. You had guys working on race cars out in the parking lots and the hotels. And
no telling how many cars would actually be there.
It is fun to watch. 9 o'clock Eastern tonight on Speed.
I promise you right now, the best dirt racers in the world will be at Knoxville.
David Green here in the 27 car. He was 33rd quickest in practice yesterday. The winner from Pikes Peak, Colorado, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
David is 7th in points coming into this race.
One of the teams that tested up here. This is the same car that he ran at Mexico, but broke a transmission. A lot of people having transmission problems. The first road course race of the Busch Series this year, as well as the Cup teams did at Infineon.
He's got his hands full through that inner loop right there, really working the wheel hard to get that 27 car to stay hooked up around the bottom.
Now, Larry, I want to get back to Ron Fellows for a second. I mentioned that he'd run kind of a conservative lap, but he does have to get in on his speed and time.
And I think that should get in, but I bet even though he was probably just trying to get a solid lap in, he was certainly expecting a lot more than that. And David Green, as you mentioned, is 7th in the points, Steve, just quiet this year. Did get that win at Pikes Peak, as we talked about, but just good, solid finishes, like at IRP last week, finished 8th. Just solid top 10s week in and week out.
David Green, 116.185 miles per hour.
It's him 15th quickest.
And we should mention, Larry, concerning David Green, Jason Ratcliffe had been his crew chief for several years there at Bruco Motorsports, and he left to go with Joe Gibbs Racing. So, you know, again, we talk about it all the time, but he had a comfort level with Jason, gets a new crew chief. That takes time.
It really does. You know, sometimes it can happen quickly. Sometimes it can take a while. I think Stuart Cooper, the crew chief over there now, which has been with this organization for a long time, a very good crew chief, but certainly taking him and David a little bit of time to get acclimated to one another.
Communication is definitely the key to being successful. We take a look at the NASCAR Busch Series points, with Martin Truex being at the top, being followed by Clint Boyer, then Reed Sorensen.
And you would tend to think with 12 races to go, including the one this afternoon, it's a 3-man race right there. And as we mentioned, Clint Boyer, Reed Sorensen, never racing here before. Martin Truex Jr. having several Busch North starts here.
So Truex Jr., who is currently the quickest of 20 drivers who have clocked in, looking for the opportunity to stretch out his lead.
Well, we see Kenny Wallace here in the 22 car on his qualifying run. We want to say get well and get back to the racetrack soon to car chief Steve Helway. Now, I know no one knows who Steve Helway is because it's a big guy. But he was riding his motorcycle up here on Wednesday with another group and had a hard crash, and right now he's in Charlottesville, Virginia at the hospital recovering. So big guy, if you're watching this morning, look forward to seeing him back at the racetrack and get well soon.
And I read the big guy broke his collarbone and some ribs, so he got banged up pretty good.
A lot of guys rode their motorcycles up here. I mean, I guess it's a beautiful trip up here and something just kind of to relax.
Hammond, did you ride your motorcycle up here?
I'm here, aren't I?
I know
I didn't ride it up here.
Oh.
Just a solid run for Kenny. 13th quickest, minute 15:17.
John Roberts is standing by with Ron Fellows.
Hey, Steve, Ron Fellows has just jumped out of the car. He's talking to the team here for a moment. Let's we'll let him do that right now, and we'll get up with him here in a moment.
All right, thank you, John.
I think, as you can tell by the look on Ron Fellows' face, that he is pretty disgusted, I think, about the way that lap turned out. It'll be interesting to see what his comments are when we do get a chance to speak with him. But here's a guy right now that when we talked to earlier, and Jeff Burton driving the 21 car for Richard Childress Racing. He was a little bit iffy about what he could or could not do. And he came up here and tested with his car, or they tested up here in Watkins Glen, and he wound up he wound up driving his car. They were going to have his teammate Kevin Harvick in the 21 car, but elected to leave Jeff in this car.
But I think the big reason, I was talking to this group yesterday, that Harvick decided he did not want to run here this weekend is he wants to keep his eye on that Nextel Cup car. He's sitting there about 13th, 14th in points, knows he only has 5 races to get it done and get in that chase for the Cup, and he did not want to have any distractions. We talked earlier in the show where we felt like this could help a lot of the Nextel Cup drivers, but Kevin just wants to keep his eye on the ball to try to make that chase for the Nextel Cup.
Coming through that corner, the bus stop, we call it, the chicane, carrying that left front wheel through there. You'll see a lot of cars do that.
Now, this is the same car that Kevin finished 2nd at the Mexico Road Race earlier in the year.
Jeff Burton has 2 top 10 finishes here in a Busch Series car. Martin Truex Jr. is the fastest. 53 drivers attempting to qualify here for just 43 spots.
See what Jeff can do. Again, he was 16th quickest in practice yesterday. Jumps up there pretty high, 7th quickest, minute 14:50. It's just a couple of 3/10 slower than what he ran yesterday in practice.
I felt much better than we've been feeling. It's a little bit too loose. But that's the best we've been, I think. I didn't do a very good job out there in the getting up through the S's. I just got too loose getting into the corner. But I just think we made a gain there. Not sure we were still where we exactly need to be, but I definitely think we made a gain.
All right, those are the thoughts of Jeff Burton. We go back to John Roberts.
Steve, with Ron Fellows now, he's had a chance to talk with the team about it. Ron, that wasn't the lap you were looking for.
No, not at all. Hey, that's we're still trying to learn with these guys and get kind of tuned up here. We're struggling a little bit, but hey, that's why we're here to give it a try and have some fun and educate these guys, and hopefully we'll get in and wherever we are in the race and see what we can do.
All right, Ron Fellows, thanks a lot. Dave Burns is with another road course specialist.
And that is Boris Said. Boris, Ron just talked to us on the air. He didn't have a very good lap, still getting used to the guys in his car. Are you fairly comfortable with this team and expect maybe a little quicker lap?
I'm not sure what Ron ran, but I mean, these guys are really good on the yellow transportation Miccosukee Indian Resort car, and
nicely done.
That's a mouthful. But they gave me a great car in Mexico, and it was pretty good in practice. So hopefully we'll just get it in the show and then race hard later.
And it is, you do have to run fairly conservative because you have to qualify on time. Is that tough for you to pull back?
It is hard because, I mean, I normally like to drive on the edge of disaster all the time, and I'm kind of like a Doberman with a hand grenade in his mouth. You know, sometimes I'm good and sometimes I blow up. So in the Cup car and this car, I'm just going to try to get a nice smooth lap, and anywhere in the top 10, I'd be real happy.
Doberman with a hand grenade. How about that, guys?
I don't know if I've ever heard that one before.
No, but I like it. I like it a lot.
I tell you, that's what I like about Boris Said. He is so animated, and at the same time, he's so competitive. As we take a look at Jason Keller right there, completing his lap. He's 17th right now. But he is such a character. I mean, I told him earlier this week when I saw him, congratulations on the run he had at Indianapolis, and he was just had a little bounce in his step, and he is a very, very talented driver, and he's helped so many people in both the Busch Series as well as the Nextel Cup Series as far as road racing is concerned. He is phenomenal when it comes to getting around a racetrack.
Played golf with Boris up at Randy LaJoie's golf tournament up in Connecticut on Wednesday, and Randy, of course, qualified earlier, and the big beneficiary for that golf tournament was the Hunter's Hope. Of course, Jim Kelly and his family losing his son Hunter about a week ago, and certainly our condolences go out to them. But trust me, Boris, he's about like a Doberman with a hand grenade in his mouth on a golf course as well. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of difference.
Does he play
there.
Army golf?
He yells for a lot.
Does he? But he told me, he said, I can hit it a long way, Hammond. I just don't know which way it's going.
When Randy LaJoie qualified, I noticed that it had Hunter Kelly's name on the hood of the car. Jim Kelly, been to the Super Bowl a lot of years with the Buffalo Bills, and has a ownership stake in that car, will be the Grand Marshal. And his son died of Krabbe's disease, and he was 8 years old. And the research on Krabbe's disease is largely unofficial, but they think that was the longest that any child has lived with that condition. So, as you said,
I think right there when you sum that up, that's what love does for you. Because Jim Kelly and his wife really loved their son Hunter, and a lot of people were surprised at the length of his life because of that. But I think that's because they cared so much for him.
Absolutely. And as far as the golf tournament, Jeff Hammond, there it is right there, Hunter Kelly. Go to the website, www.huntershope.org. But Jeff Hammond, I'll leave you with this thought from the golf tournament. Driver, driver, eagle.
No, you didn't.
Think about that one.
You did? You hit a driver out of the fairway?
Driver. Teed it up just a little bit.
Oh, you cheating dog.
Just like you used to in the NASCAR series.
Just a little bit. I'll even give you one better than that. It was on the wrong fairway, but
you played it out on the wrong fairway.
But it still got on the green in the second shot. What does it matter? Randy LaJoie said at the start of the tournament, there are no rules.
No rules. I was all impressed. He said driver, driver, eagle.
Scorecard don't know a thing about the wrong fairway.
72 car gets a little bit loose out of that final turn right there with
Paul Bonacorsi in the race car.
Bonacorsi. Winds up 22nd.
Yep, 22nd.
And he's one of the go or go home cars. That's going to be very, very borderline. I'm going to tell you the car that's going to be watching this qualifying pretty close, Jeff. We were talking about a while ago at break is Elliott Sadler in that 08 car. Could be in trouble.
I think he could be in trouble. He's going to need some help, guys.
Driver, Eagle. Teed it up out of the wrong fairway. You're a Nyson.
I am, but it still was an Eagle.
He's from Alabama.
Todd Souza in the 97 car clocks in 20th of 25 drivers taking time here at Watkins Glen International.
He is a go or go home car, and I think that's going to be right there in that window of a very borderline.
Watching that car during his practice run, qualifying run, it got very, very loose a couple different times on him. Watch him as he goes in through here and he comes around through. Watch the car. Just takes a big slide through that chicane.
And that did definitely cost him a lot of time.
But as we like to say, he never lifted.
It's go or go home.
Paul Wolf in the 12 car, as Dave Burns said, ran some races for Ray Evernham in the 6 car. Made his first start at Indianapolis Raceway Park a week ago in that number 12 car.
He was 38th quickest in practice yesterday.
And Wolf has 4 starts here in the Busch North Series. See that left front tire coming up off the ground?
Try to get through there the shortest distance through the inner loop. Car gets a little wide on him down there in turn 5. Come up through here. You come off that corner in 3rd gear. Some guys will grab high gear just for a second here, but you downshift all the way to 2nd gear here to get through this left-hander, turn 6. And you're going to run 2nd gear all the way up this short chute. The final right-hander. All the way back to the start-finish line. See what Paul does on this lap.
8th.
Good lap. Minute 14:56. Good lap for Paul Wolf.
Martin Truex Jr. is the quickest. Paul Wolf clocks in 8 more. Busch Bowl qualifying headed your way here from Watkins Glen International. You're watching Speed. Back at Watkins Glen, John Wood clocks in at 19th. 27 drivers taking time. And we go to Dave Burns standing by with Greg Biffle.
Who is going to do double duty this weekend in his Cup car and today the Busch car? How good are you?
I don't think it's bad. You know, the Hinkle car was pretty good in practice. We definitely wanted to get that second practice in because, you know, no qualifying runs at all, but really wanted to try some more stuff in race, but we got what we got, so have to qualify here. I think probably be able to qualify in the top 15, I'm hoping. And I watched the TV. A lot of people say no grip, no grip. Martin Truex lays down a pretty fast lap. He obviously had grip, so just have to wait and see.
So you need to run a Truex-like lap, it appears.
Yeah, just pray for a lot of grip with these Goodyear tires.
So, Biff, as far as the impound day now, this isn't really as much of a deal as it is on an oval track, is it?
Not really, because, you know, we typically don't do a lot here to qualify a road race car because the lap is so long. We got to make 2 laps anyway, so we can't tape the grill down as far. So the car doesn't get unbalanced as much on the nose, but, you know, we still got some of the brakes taped off and some of the nose, so definitely be a little bit looser.
Greg Biffle in the 66 car today, guys.
Dave, thanks a lot. Personally, boys, I always pray for a lot of grip.
It definitely does not hurt.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Want a grip on life. Jorge Getters, the pole sitter, Mexico City in the 32 car of Braun Racing.
Now, the 66 car that Greg Biffle drives, that's the car that Jorge Getters sat on the pole with back at Mexico.
I got a chance to talk to Jorge the other day, and he has run at Watkins Glen. You watched the 32 car come through that part of the racetrack, and the car was a little bit loose, like the front end was not hooking up like it needed to, sliding around. He definitely had his hands full.
He was 13th quickest in practice. This is actually his 3rd start or attempting his third start of 2005. Not only did he run at Mexico, but he ran at Pikes Peak in the 32 car as well. And it almost appears that the Achilles heel for him has been making pit stops, something he's just not been used to. And I talked to Todd Losey, the crew chief on this car, and he said that Jorge came to the shop and they practiced pit stops for a day. Pretty good lap for him as well, 7th quickest. Minute 14:28. And he competed in the Grand Am race here last night as well as a bunch of others.
Yeah, I could hear him while we were doing trackside. More bush ball qualifying from Watkins Glen International right after this. Scott Turner completing his lap here at Watkins Glen, trying to make his NASCAR Busch Series debut. 28th out of 29 drivers taking time today here at Watkins Glen. Tonight on Speed, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series live from Nashville. Dennis Setzer has got it dialed in, winning 4 of the last 6 races. Now he's ready to rock Nashville. Will he be playing sweet music, or will someone give him reason for the blues? The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series from Nashville live tonight at 5 p.m.
Now, DW was trying to convince a lot of people earlier in the week that's the DW 200. Is there anything to that, Jeff? I think is he the Grand Marshal?
Only in his mind.
Which can be a lot.
He's got a lot of space in there.
All right, here comes the Doberman with the hand grenade in his mouth.
Let's see if he's got the pin pulled, guys.
Boris said he was 14th quickest in practice yesterday. Now, we need to mention of our go-or-go homers, we're starting to get some cars that are being bumped into the show. Joe Nemechek in the 87 car has been bumped in right now. He's 3rd, as well as Chris Cook, who is 6th quickest right now. Those guys will race later on this afternoon.
What did he say? Boris said, sometimes I'm spectacular and sometimes I blow up.
That's exactly right. And going through that chicane back there, guys, he looked extremely quick and very smooth.
Finished 4th here in 2001 in a Busch Series car.
Hard on brakes to qualify for the Nextel Cup race as well.
And remember, 2 years ago, he sat on the pole. Was it 2 years ago at Sonoma, the road course race there?
A lot of fans roaming around here this weekend with big afros, black afros.
The set heads.
The set head, yeah.
I heard them last night, too, during trackside.
He'll be happy now because he's bumped himself into the field. 3rd quickest for Boris, minute 13:72.
Boris was on the pole here in 98 in the Busch Series race. Well, John Roberts, how's Jorge Getters doing after his lap?
Well, Steve, it wasn't the pole, but still a very solid top 10. And Jorge, you have to be very happy with that when you don't get a lot of experience out here.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with Brown Racing, Canon, Scotiabank, Chevrolet, number 32 is very happy to be right now in the top 10. I was a little disappointed because I have a loose off besides the chicane, and I think, oh, I'm going to crash, and I correct the car, and I know I lose a lot of time there. But the car is still very good. Maybe for the races could be the setup as we want, and let's see. We will see what happens.
Thanks a lot, Jorge. Good luck come race time. Dave Burns.
Standing by with Wally Dallenbach, a man with lots of laps on a road course, lots of laps in a Busch car. None of them this weekend. What's going on?
We had some issues. We were so late getting, because we have no points. By the time we got through inspection, they found something that was wrong. By the time we corrected it, we lost practice, and then the second practice rained out. So other than that, it's been a really great weekend.
And any truth to the rumor that you and Kevin swapped places, you driving one of his cars because he's really bugging for your broadcasting job?
No, we haven't talked about that, but if he's watching, I'd love to talk to him about it. Absolutely. No, we got a good car. We got a good bunch of guys that are going to be pitting the car. We just got to get one good lap in, and being an impound race, we can't touch the car, so you really can't tell what the car is going to do after one lap of qualifying for the race. But we did test here, so we've got a baseline. So I just, last week we were talking about during qualifying at Brickyard. I know how Robbie's feeling, these guys that have to make the show. I know how it feels, and I hate it. I don't like this feeling.
It's like being a guy who has to start the race with only one lap in the car, guys.
The Wally's World lap doesn't count?
Well, he did get a little bit of track time yesterday shooting Wally's World, so maybe it's not that he's not been on the racetrack at all this weekend.
Whoa, new pole sitter Casey Kane jumps to the top, beating Martin Truex Jr.
Well, he was 6th quickest yesterday in practice, so he was close, but I think that's somewhat of a surprise, wouldn't you say, Larry Mack?
One of the few cars that has picked up from practice, picked up almost 3/4 of a second.
So a new pole sitter here at Watkins Glen International. We'll talk to him after this here on Speed. Travis Kvapil, another full-time Nextel Cup driver, trying to get some seat time in this afternoon's NASCAR Busch Series race. Kvapil's time good enough for 16th. We have a new pole sitter for this event after 32 drivers have clocked in. John Roberts is with Casey Kane. Have to get to John in just a minute. Meanwhile, we'll watch Ryan Newman.
Ryan Newman now, he was 2nd quickest yesterday in practice. So it could be kind of interesting to see how long Casey Kane winds up sitting on the pole, because we know Ryan very well. He'll be probably going for it, even though he does need to qualify in for this race.
Yeah, he's go or go home. One thing I noticed about this car, Jeff, they have that front end taped up about as much as anyone we've seen. Certainly helps the straightaway speed and puts a lot of downforce. And Dave, I think you have a little story to share with us about Ryan.
Well, he was casually hanging out in the qualifying line while his car moved closer and closer to going on track without him. Finally, the boys went running after him, and Ryan came running back. Crew Chief Roy McCauley was a little bit nervous about how long Ryan was taking to get there, and Ryan sprinted down to his car. If he has a great lap, maybe it's because he had a great warm-up.
Most exercise he's had this morning.
I'll buy it. Well, you got to be warmed up and ready to go. You be shifting gears and jumping on the brakes and turning the steering wheel. So,
car
makes
looks
sense.
good. Car looks real fast. See what he does. 2nd quickest for Ryan, and he was a go or go homer, so he'll race this afternoon. And that's pretty close to Casey Kane.
Not great, just a bit on the little loose side, but in general, just.
Sounds like that's pretty much the nature of the beast. Everyone's a little on the loose side.
And
so
now,
far,
John Roberts.
Haven't heard anybody say anything good so far about the racetrack.
Now, John Roberts has Casey Kane.
Hey, Steve, you know, the first thing Casey Kane did when he got out of his race car was look up on the Jumbotron to see what Ryan Newman was doing. But you told me just a second ago that that was the kind of lap you were looking for after running 6 in practice. You guys did pick up.
Yeah, I thought we could. We put a little more tape on and gave the car a little bit more grip. So I was happy. They made some changes to help the car, and the Evernham engine was running great. I thank Hellman's and everybody at Dodge to get this operation going. But these guys did a real good job. I think that should hold up. Hopefully a top 5, maybe first. Who knows?
As you were watching the progress of the qualifying session, did you feel as if the track was getting better?
Yeah, I think it probably does get better. I mean, the sun came out there for a minute, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to slow down. And you know, the first cars out were on some other rubber, and they were first out today. So I'd say the track's definitely at its best right now, and you know, it showed. Our Hellman's car is pretty good.
All right, Casey Kane, thanks a lot. Good luck in come race time. And you know, Casey Kane's up there for now, but there's still a lot of strong cars left to go, Steve.
All right, thank you, John. So right now, the front row, Casey Kane and Ryan Newman, both in Dodges.
Now the cars that are locked in, the go-or-go homers, we've already talked about Joe Nemechek as well as Chris Cook. Ryan Newman's locked in, Boris Said, as well as Paul Wolf. They are locked in the show. They will race this afternoon.
The Biff, Greg Biffle, and number 66.
He was 17th quickest in practice yesterday. See what Greg can roll out of here. Mentioned this team set on the pole back in Mexico with Jorge Getters, and he's 8th quickest, minute 14:07.
I like what his crew chief Newt Moore told me earlier this year. He said, Steve, I'd never have to tell Greg Biffle, come on, get up on that wheel. Because he drives her hard every lap.
I'm going to say the other way around with him. Hey, take it easy, patient, slow down a little bit, save a little bit.
And I'll go by and ask Newt, you know, what you got here this week? You know, talking about his race car, he says, I got Greg Biffle.
We've got Dave Burns. Dave?
And Robert Yates Racing has Dale Jarrett and Elliott Sadler, and I think about 12 cars here this weekend. You feel like you come with the whole package here?
Yeah, we got everybody that we have personnel-wise here for sure. And just trying to do everything we can to maximize our chances of making the chase in the Cup Series. And, you know, getting some experience here, running some more laps never hurts. I can't run enough on a road course.
Now, I got to have some fun with you because I know the last time you ran really great here, there was some gravel down there that ended your day. You like seeing that pavement down there?
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I was asking where that was a few years ago. Could have solved a lot of my problems down there. But now that day was a lot of fun to have a race car that good. Just unfortunately, I wasn't able to keep up with it quite long enough. We were able to get a lap back, and then I made another mistake trying to pass Mark down there. But, yeah, I like the idea of what we have here. I think, though, it's going to make some people a little more brave getting into this corner, passing, realizing that if they hit that guy, that he's not going in the sand, he'll just go out there for a while. So that's going to be interesting to see the next 2 days.
I think we better watch lap 1 real closely, John Roberts.
Oh, absolutely, Dave Burns. One guy who had a great lap out there is the Rocket Man himself, Ryan Newman. Did you catch your breath before you got behind the wheel of the car?
Yeah, a little bit. I had to. We were supposed to go out 34th, and I walked out on 25 or 25th car, and I guess I had about a mile and a half to walk and kind of underestimated a little bit. But had a good lap for Altel Dodge. These guys are doing a good job, and it was a pretty conservative lap on my part, just knowing what the situation was. This being our only road course car, as well as not having any provisional or anything to get in on. Just wanted to make a good lap, knowing we were second in practice yesterday, having a little bit of practice.
All right, so Ryan Newman second in practice. Right now on the speed chart, he's second as well, Steve.
John Kerry Earnhardt on his do-over lap. In case you missed it at the very beginning of qualifying, Kerry Earnhardt was on his warm-up lap. Brent Sherman was making his lap. So NASCAR allowed both drivers to make another lap if they so desired, and they both do.
Now, Kerry is a go or go home car.
So Kerry Earnhardt to the garage. Still to come, the hottest man in racing, Tony Stewart. He will go out 53rd. Trouble for Stanton Barrett here at Watkins Glen International. Saw a big puff of smoke. Let's take a look at what happened, boys.
Looked like he was, as he comes through turn 5 right there, he's smoking off a lot, but it looked to me like as he went through the chicane back here, Larry, I noticed a lot of smoke starting to come out of the back of the car. And you said earlier he had problems with transmission during practice?
Yeah, he only got 4 laps of practice. I talked to his crew chief, Ricky Pearson, this morning. They actually, a transmission fitting bottomed out and broke off. Now, I don't know if this is transmission from where it was coming out. Looked like it was coming out the wheel openings in the front. That almost looks like possibly something with the engine or engine related.
Well, the good thing about it, he's doing everything he possibly can to get out of the groove, get off the racetrack, to give his fellow competitors an opportunity to have a clean racetrack. Now, I didn't notice anything going down on the racetrack, but obviously where there's smoke, there's oil coming out on the headers or some part of the racetrack.
And what a great run he had at the Mexican road race back in the spring. Led some laps. He was like headed toward a top 5 finish. Ended up finishing 19th because he got spun out near the end of the race.
Later today on Speed, catch ARCA Stock Car Racing. It's live from Nashville. 6-time ARCA champ Frank Kimmel gears up to trade paint with red-hot rookies. ARCA Stock Car Racing live from Nashville. Today at 2, only on Speed. Joey Miller on the pole for that race. And Ray Evernham's driver, Aaron Crocker, will start 3rd.
That's over in Nashville, so I would say that's the other version of the DW200.
Yeah, it's a doubleheader.
Doubleheader.
Trouble for Stanton Barrett. We'll take this opportunity to get in a break as track workers look at the racetrack. We'll be right back.
Stop.
Back at Watkins Glen, Busch Series qualifying is still going. The 55 car of Robbie Gordon still going, even though we hadn't seen it for a long time. You excited to be back in Busch Series competition?
Well, we qualified the Red Bull Chevy on the front row down in Mexico City, and we had an engine failure. So this is kind of like a make-good deal. The race car was still in great shape. Didn't use the brakes up or anything, so it was as easy as come up here, test last week or about 10 days ago, and then bring the Red Bull car back to the racetrack.
How comfortable is it out there?
We were 5th quickest in practice. We were a little bit faster than Casey Kane, so you know, if he picked up, hopefully we can pick up the same amount. But our biggest thing is to get in the race, get us a spot in the show, and we'll worry about the race after that.
All right, Robbie Gordon, he's about 6 cars back right now, guys.
Today, the track workers are still trying to determine if Stanton Barrett laid anything down there, so we'll take a break and have more Bush Bowl qualifying from Watkins Glen International. You're watching Speed. Hope you're having a great Saturday morning. Coming up next on Speed, it's Bud Pole qualifying from the Glen. Fresh off his win at Indy, Tony Stewart heads for the track where he's won 2 of the last 3 events. Bud Pole qualifying up next, live from Watkins Glen, only on Speed. The cars are already gridded.
Guys, let's take a look at the track conditions right now as we see NASCAR continue to work on the track from the problem that the 36 car Stanton Barrett's had. You can see a lot of speedy drive. The trucks are trying to work it in. That's what that safety worker is doing right now with that big red truck. He's trying to work that speedy drive around to get all the oil if possible off the racetrack, and the NASCAR will come back with their blowers, blow all this speedy drive off the track, and hopefully the track will then be, good enough for these guys to continue qualifying without any problems.
Yeah, Carlos Contreras is the next driver to go out, and then after Carlos, Stan Silva Jr., who is a go or go home car. A lot of times after a situation like this, they may take Carlos and Stan out there, let them look at the racetrack where they can give a thumbs up that they feel good about what's going on there. Carlos driving the 40 car, and while we're looking at the 40 car, we just want to send our well wishes out to the Marlin family, Sterling Marlin. Sterling normally drives the 40 car at a lot of the companion events. Sterling is not up here this weekend because his dad, Cuckoo, is very, very sick. But we just want to stress that the reason Sterling is not here has nothing to do with him not returning to Ganassi Racing in the 40 car next year. It's simply because of his dad, Cuckoo Marlin, being very, very sick. They're just going to play it one day after another. David Stremme actually practiced the 40 Nextel Cup car yesterday.
And Sterling was here at Watkins Glen on Thursday, but got the call to come home, unfortunately, to Columbia, Tennessee. So as Larry Mack said, our thoughts and prayers with the Marlin family.
And I'd like to add, you talk about the family of NASCAR, how things work. The way he got back home, the Morgan McClure folks lent him their jet to fly him back down there. Larry McClure and that whole group right there were able to let them borrow his jet to fly Sterling back home to be there with his dad.
Looks like so far they've done a pretty good job of cleaning up this area here. You can see the 3 jet dryers out there after they work the oil dry in. So cleanup looks pretty good right now.
And Dave Burns is cleaning up on pit road.
When you walk in on a group of drivers like this, there's always some teaching going on. There's always some learning going on. There are big stories being swapped. A lot of talking with their hands. Brian Vickers, Boris Said, and Scott Pruitt. But I want to start with you, Scott. You're the only one that hasn't been describing your race car down here. Why not?
I haven't been in it long enough to describe it that way.
Is that how your weekend's going?
It hasn't been too bad. The Target car ran good in the Cup Series. We were second quick yesterday. And the Geico car, we just didn't get much time yesterday. Came here with Biaggi Racing and didn't have a chance to come test here. So we're learning a lot along the way, and hopefully we can just get a good run in qualifying and have a good race.
Boris, your gestures were steering somehow, I believe.
We were just telling lies about how crazy restrictor plate racing is. I mean, there's no way to explain it to somebody watching TV. I mean, how crazy it is in the car. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely crazy.
And Brian, you have probably the most experience restrictor plate racing of this 3. So what were your gestures all about?
The same thing. I was just supporting him in his comments. It's we were talking about just, and also the thing we were talking about is in NASCAR in general. Our sport, the competition is so strong. They were talking about road course racing. You may be racing against 4 or 8 guys, and here you're racing against 43 guys. I'm happy to run this Busch race this weekend. It's fun. First time in the Lowe's Briggs & Stratton Chevy, but. I'm just trying to get all the information I can from these guys.
That's why I thought you'd be picking their brains for one last nugget of road course information, right?
I got the good fortune to ride with him the first time he ever drove on a road course at Indy.
And what was that like?
It was a little crazier than restrictor plate racing. We were in the BMW M3 GTR on
the hands. Let's see the hands.
On the Formula One circuit, and there was a lot of this. There was a couple of these, but then he got straightened out. It was
true story.
True story. It was fun. We were up there for that Jeff Montoya switch, and they let me jump in the BMW. It was a blast. And that car, I mean, it's just like a high-speed go-kart. And I was on the edge, and a couple of times I went over the edge.
And Boris, I guess the other thing we need to know is that day, was he like a Doberman with a hand grenade on the good end or the bad end?
He was on the good end. I mean, it was his first time doing it, and it was definitely an exciting ride from my seat. I don't know if I have the stomach for it again, but no, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, you drivers don't really like to take the two-seat rides, do you, Scott?
Oh,
when you're not in the driver's seat.
Oh, it's scary. I mean, it's hardly. I mean, I won't even let my wife drive when I'm in a regular car going anywhere. But
when his wife's driving, he's hand driving. Hey.
The most scariest thing I ever did is I went testing in the Olympia Forest with Rod Millen. And I had to, as a passenger, I had to time sections because they were tire testing. After about 2 runs, I said, you know what? This is all yours, buddy, because it's scaring the crap out of me. It was horrible.
Drivers like to be behind the wheel. Vickers, you're going to get your chance here in a minute. Is this slowing you down a little bit, waiting like this?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, luckily the temperature's not really changing. We were thinking that it was going to get hotter as the qualifying went on, but it's really stayed the same. So I think we'll be okay. As long as they get the oil cleaned up, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, and what's this about a two-seater, guys, you've been talking about up there?
Well, Dave, what the deal is I understand the MB2 has a two-seater that Boris has been teaching with. I mean, he's quite the educator when it comes to road course racing, and they were saying that they have a special car that he uses to teach other drivers.
Well, let's check in on that, Boris. I understand that your team, the MB2 team, does have a two-seater that you do some instructing in. You freak some people out as well?
Yeah, and it's good to pay back some people, but
Suckers.
I took Scott Riggs, and I've been with a bunch of guys, and actually it's a really good training tool, and I get to scare them a little bit, but then I have to end up riding with, I rode with Scott Riggs for 2 days at BIR, and actually he did a really good job. I mean, he's a good driver, and once you show those guys, they're like ducks taking the water. Once you show them a few things, they're on it, and then they're pretty fast.
But what do you do with your hands? Roll bar, or where do you hang on?
There's no hand talking when you're sitting in the passenger seat. You're just holding on for dear life, wishing it was over.
There's no fake steering wheel or anything?
No fake steering wheel. Just your hand. You got to peel your hands off the roll bar padding.
I say a lot of fingernail digs in the roll bar padding from holding on.
That's right. As far as we know, no driver instructor brake pedal either, guys.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Larry Mack, you were saying about the drivers, but I understand right now from NASCAR that the crew chief for the 40 car is inside the pace car going around, and it looks to me like Brett Bodine is driving around the track, and he's giving him an opportunity to kind of surmise what the conditions are out on the racetrack.
Yeah, that's Eddie Buffington riding in the passenger seat there, and they're going to take a look at it, and Eddie will determine whether he feels good about, going back and giving Carlos good information. Hey, the track's good to go.
Well, they'll continue to check out the track, and you will check out some exciting commercials here on Speed Channel. Bush Pole qualifying continues here at Watkins Glen. Casey Kane is our pole sitter for the time being. 36 drivers have attempted to qualify. We've been under a caution period for Stanton Barrett, who laid some fluid down on the track, but as Larry Mack said, his crew chief Ed Buffington was in the pace car with Brett Bodine, and apparently Ed Buffington gives everybody the thumbs up.
40 car is rolling in, and we take a look at the pace car coming down through there with Brett Bodine driving. Hey, local guy from Chemung, New York. Bodine drove.
Oh, getting back to that two-seater car that Boris was talking about.
Yeah.
Pete Wright, who's one of the mechanics at MB2 and MBB, told me that
veteran mechanic,
who worked with Jeff Hammond back with Junior Johnson. Pete told me that from the time that Boris took Scott Riggs out until his last lap, Scott picked up 5 seconds. That's how much of a teacher Boris said is.
Now, wait a minute. That might have been how bad Scott Riggs was to begin with.
Well,
I'd be like trying to teach you or me.
Yeah, something like that.
But Boris, I mean, before he actually had a regular ride in Nextel Cup or in the Busch Series, I mean, a lot of teams would hire him to go to their road course test. I need to mention, we had said Paul Wolf had been locked into the field. Paul was already locked in because of his owner point status. It's actually Michael Waltrip, as well as Chris Cook, Joe Nemechek, Boris said, Ryan Newman. Those go or go homers are locked into the show right now for this afternoon.
Carlos Contreras, the car looked good as far as everything was concerned, as him coming up around the racetrack.
He was 36th quickest in practice yesterday.
Now making what we call the money lap to see whether he can, where he's going to wind up in this field of 43 today.
You come up through here in third gear, and just at the top of the hill, before you make that last right hand, you grab high gear. And Steve, this was the area you were talking about a while ago. High speed, well over 180 miles per hour, and you're in high you go from third all the way down to second gear to get through the inner loop right here.
He's hustling through there, Larry.
Yes, he is.
And then you enter turn 5 through turn 5. Long sweeping right-hander right around the bottom. And on the exit of turn 5 here, you grab third gear again. And again, unless you really get a good run off turn 5, you'll run third gear all the way up this straightaway. You might have to grab high gear just for a little bit, but all the way back to second gear as you enter turn 6. So very busy, or just in one lap around this racetrack.
Contreras qualified 8th for the road course event at Mexico City and had a good day before engine problems cut their day short.
A pretty good lap, guys.
12th, good enough for 12th.
That is a good lap for Carlos.
And we might add, a great job by the cleanup crew here at the Glen. Everybody did a really nice job. Allowed him to make that kind of lap.
So Casey Kane still the pole sitter. Stan Silva in the number 65, scheduled to go out next. Don't forget the last driver to take time here, Tony Stewart, as we watch Ryan Newman and Casey Kane talk to Ray Evernham. Stan Silva has 3 top 10s and 5 NASCAR Southwest Tour Series races this season.
Now, Stan was one of those cars that did not make a practice lap yesterday, and he is a go or go homer. So really got some work to do here.
From Castroville, California. It's a lot of pressure on a racetrack like this, Larry, as technically demanding as it is, as fast as it is.
Well, and it's a rhythm racetrack. I think it's hard enough not to have no practice today and go out here and try to qualify, but to have no practice at all over the weekend leading into qualifying, that is a huge challenge for these drivers and these teams.
We're on and off the throttle right there. Had a little problem coming through the carousel, a little bit wide through turn 5.
It sounded like Stan stayed in third gear up this short straightaway that we've been talking about headed into turn 6. Using up all the racetrack on the short chute, final right-hand corner. Trying to pick up the throttle and get back to that checkered flag.
So Stan's lap good enough for 25th of 38 drivers.
And that will bump Travis Quapple in the 77 car into the show.
And we will bump into Dave Burns.
I figured out the secret to Paul Menard's success. He never gets in the car upside down because that gel pad is clearly marked. He knows which way to sit in the seat here. Obviously, there's a little more to it than that. But you're pretty pumped up about your cars this weekend, aren't you?
Yeah, man, this car is awesome right here. I guess we wound up 8th in practice yesterday, but just going out clicking off laps. We ran a lot of like 1380s, lap after lap. So the Quaker State Menard Chevrolet is definitely good. And we got the on the Cup side, the Rich Sorio Chevy is pretty good too. I wound up 17th there. Never did a qualifying run in either car, so don't really know what to expect once we tape off. But the race is going to be good.
I know you were comfortable in a road racing car because you kind of started out there. How much did the ice racing up on the lakes of Wisconsin help this kind of deal?
Not a whole lot, but it's looking like rain right now, so I'm pulling for it. But it's we're growing up ice racing, and that's a blast. That's probably the most fun racing I've ever done. And it's a lot different technique, though. You don't drive the corners anywhere near like you do on an asphalt road course, but it's still a lot of fun.
It gets slick out there. I think Paul's going to be okay. And remember, guys, never gets into the seat upside down.
That would be a good thing, I would think.
We hope.
You look confused, Jeff.
No comment.
Sometimes that's the best thing. David Strimmy in the 14 car, again, practiced Sterling Marlin's Nextel Cup car yesterday. David was 40th quickest in practice, what little bit they got yesterday.
He had a rough weekend in Mexico City, as I recall. He had a stomach problem down there.
Actually had to get out of the race car.
Would you call that Montezuma's revenge?
Evidently.
I call it don't drink the water or eat the lettuce.
32nd.
32nd quickest. A lot like David Green, just quietly hanging out in the top 10 in points. 8th in points. Had a good run at IRP last weekend. Finished 5th.
Casey Kane and Ryan Newman currently on the front row. And it is time for Wally's World.
It is. Wally Dallenbach. Talked to him earlier. This will be, even though he tested up here in this Kevin Harvick car, this will be the first lap he's made this weekend. One of those 6 cars that did not get a practice time in yesterday. But I did hear he had an awfully good test up here.
Finished second here in 1995 in a Cup race.
Driving for Jack Roush.
Had 7 top 10 finishes and 9 Cup starts here.
Coming up through the S's. Car looks a little bit on the dancy side, Larry, like he's not got the grip he'd probably like to have through that area. But being the talented road racer he is, I'm sure he'll be able to hang on to her and get it back to the start finish line and lay down a pretty good lap. He is very underrated when it comes to being one of the better road racers, I think, here at the Glen.
And one of the problems this team had yesterday was that we talked earlier, NASCAR mandates the ratios in the transmission, and when they check this, he gets real loose going around turn 5 here.
But he stayed in it, Larry.
But one of the things they mandate the ratios, they checked the ratios. This team did not have the right ratio, so they took the transmission, so that set them back as well.
Yeah, and he had to put the right one in, and as you said, lost some valuable practice time because of that.
It's safe to say Wally's getting everything he can out of this run right here. Gets real loose off that turn 7, but stayed in the throttle. Let's see what Wally does. Good lap, 12th quickest. So he will race this afternoon. For what that car looked like, that's a pretty darn good lap.
Well, I think out there it goes to show you once again, he put that car on his shoulders and carried it around here. Great job by Wally Dallenbach.
He was hard on that throttle on that last turn headed towards the start-finish line.
He knew he was go or go home, and there's no way he wanted to have to face Sam Flood and not make this race.
I'm not too sure facing Sam would have been half as bad as trying to face Kevin Harvick.
See how loose he was through there. This is that turn 5, that long sweeping left-hander. It's almost like on every corner from the center off how he was very, very loose.
Dave Burns?
I'm standing by with Clint Boyer, and Clint and I were just kind of smelling the air here. You know how you run down a hill behind a truck and you smell that brake smoke? Wally was kind of looking like that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he must have been hard on the brakes, but he was had a good lap for not having any laps. But AC Delco Chevrolet, we're struggling a little bit. I think the driver's struggling a little bit more than the car, but you know, we're just going to try to have fun, try to, you know, good pit strategy goes a long ways at these races, and hopefully we can get off sequence a little bit there and, you know, hopefully get up on the wheel a little bit more than practice and get us a good qualifying spot. That's a game plan anyway.
You lost some points to Martin last week. Is it tough to come here now and know this is a place where he runs well, and on your mind is the fact that you guys haven't done that great yet?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is kind of his neck of the woods right here. He always run good here. Been here quite a few times and had a lot of success here. So it's definitely tough. You know, we lost a little bit of ground last week, had a really good race car, and just got to, you know, if we can get through this week and not lose many points, I know when we get to the big racetracks, we'll have something for him.
But Boyer currently second in the championship, guys.
All right, thanks, Dave. And Regan Smith on the racetrack.
Regan was 35th quickest in practice yesterday afternoon.
And Larry, we should mention, you said that Wally didn't want to make Sam Flood mad. That's his boss at NBC.
Yes,
producer.
it is. I tell you what, that's a good lap for Regan Smith, though, because he's a go or go home car, and he will race qualifying 18th at a minute 14.67. Good lap.
We keep talking about the guys that are kind of racing their way in. Some guys have already been bumped out. We haven't really talked about Elliott Sadler, but had a 8 car definitely been bumped out along with Mark Green and
Scott Turner, Joe Fox, and Kerry Earnhardt.
There's the 08 car.
had a rough weekend. And you see the X's, and we see that on a lot of the front end tape. You see it on the quarter window there, Elliott Sadler. That's to remind the team that's what needs to be untaped before they put this car in the race. One of the things that NASCAR will allow the teams to do is untape the front end, untape some of these ducts under the impound procedure. And here's his teammate, Dale Jarrett, in the 90 car. Dale was 19th quickest in practice yesterday, and as Elliott mentioned, one of the teams that came up here and tested.
Actually won a Bud Pole here in the Cup Series back in 2001. Has 3 Busch Series starts on a road course. Best finish, 8th at Watkins Glen here in 1997.
Guys, he told me the other day when we were watching, they're here running this race, you know, obviously to get a little more seat time for the Nextel Cup race here tomorrow. But he told me he's put extra pressure on himself trying to make that chase for the Cup. I mean, it's just, he said, Jeff, this could be even more pressure than I had on me back when I won the championship, because the team was so good, the cars were so dominating back then. He said we could make up ground easily. Here this year, the competition's so stiff, you give a little bit, you lose a lot. And so it's always important right now that we do everything smart. I draw on my experience to make sure I make the right decisions to keep our team in a position to be able to make this top 10.
Looked like a pretty solid lap for Dale Jarrett, the 90 car.
And Jeff, just 5 races remain in that race for the chase to make their way into the chase for the Nextel Cup.
Ends up 10th quickest, and that'll bump DJ into the show as he was a go-or-go-homer.
So Dale Jarrett, 10th for the time being, and we go back to John Roberts.
And Steve, I'm with a very relieved Wally Dallenbach. Every slip on the racetrack puts a bad thought in your mind, doesn't it?
I hate this stuff. I swear, qualifying like that is just very tough. Yeah, the car was really loose, but every time I slipped, I'm like, up there it goes. That's it, you know. So, but the guys did a good job for not having any practice. We did run up here a little bit in the test, so that helped a lot. We just want to get in a race. Hopefully get a good result for Mr. Clean. Those guys hung with us, and Kevin's given me a good opportunity here, so we want to try to capitalize on it.
Says a lot for the test session.
It does. We would have been in big trouble, and I would have been in big trouble because I was rusty as it was around this place, not racing here in 5 or 6 years. So the test session did help a lot.
All right, that's Wally Dallenbach. You know, Steve, it's tough to come here when you're one of those one-off deals because you don't have the points. You get caught up in inspection. Same thing that happened to Wally.
53 teams here, John, for 43 spots. Tyler Walker heads out in the 38 car.
He was 20th quickest in practice yesterday, so Tyler, car a little bit loose right through the chicane area, but he was solid in practice yesterday. See what kind of lap he can put down here. Again, back end stepping out of that 38 car pretty aggressively, Larry.
And he ran awfully well over in the Mexico Road race every year. Had a good solid run over there.
I saw a feature on him on NASCAR Nation the other night. He bought a bike. He lives on Lake Norman. Had a dump truck unload a bunch of dirt at his house is on the lake, and he drives this bike. He essentially made a ramp with it, and then he drives it into the lake. He jumps off the bike in midair.
That's a driver for you.
Sound like something like Hammond would do.
Yeah. He had a dump truck full of like red clay.
So does he just junk the bike, or?
No, well, he keeps making runs.
Just he fishes it out, huh? He fishes a pretty good lap out of that right there, too. He's 11th quickest.
He gets to the peak when he's airborne, and he lets go of the bike. Then he fishes it out and does it again.
Okay. How old is he?
I'm telling you.
I'm missing
26, and he was recently engaged. So, you know, no, you're not missing a thing, Larry Mack. That's what he does.
I got to go watch this.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch it, make sure you do it. And take a camera along with you.
This will be something to watch here. This qualifying lap, Robbie Gordon in his 55 car. We talked to him earlier. Sat on the outside pole back in Mexico. Just had a lot of engine woes that weekend, but there's no question that a lot of the engine woes that Robbie Gordon had in the Busch Series as well as his Nextel Cup car, they have dissipated since back in February, early March.
And I was pretty impressed, too, when I talked to him. He made mention of it when we talked to him earlier, that he felt like he owed Red Bull, I guess you call it a do-over also, an extra race, because
a make good.
Because he didn't have the performance he was looking for down in Mexico. So, as he said, the car was sitting there, and He loves road racing, so why not bring it up here and take advantage of it?
He was 5th quickest in practice yesterday. Car looks pretty solid so far coming through the interlude.
Looked really good through that part of the racetrack.
Won both Cup road course races in 2003, Sonoma and Watkins Glen.
Car really hooked good right around the bottom of turn 5.
And this is only his 3rd Busch Series start of this year. Besides Mexico, he finished in the top 5 back in the season opener at Daytona. So far, we have not seen a lot of bobble in this qualifying run.
No, not at all.
So comes off that last turn 7. Let's see what Robbie Gordon can do. Can he bump Casey Kane?
No.
2nd quickest.
He bumps Ryan Newman, but Casey Kane breathes a sigh of relief.
By 2/100ths of a second, he misses the Busch pole. But he will race this afternoon.
Good lap.
Well, I mentioned there's 53 drivers taking time today. The last one to go out, the guy named Tony Stewart. He's with Dave Burns.
Smoke is standing by with us right now, getting ready to race his Busch car. We saw Robbie Gordon out there, one of these road course guys. You've become one of these road course guys. Why more laps in the Busch car?
Just, it's something fun that we've been doing with Kevin Harvick and Delana. I keep telling everybody Delana's my car owner. Kevin just is the guy that puts his name on the car because of his ego. But no, we've been having a lot of fun with those two. And, this is one of our races for Old Spice. So, we just figured it would be a good race with as well as we've been running on the road courses to come here and hopefully try to get Old Spice to win. They feel like we got to step it up a little bit since we got one for Mr. Clean and the Pro Series Auto Dry Car Wash team. So now we got to get one for Old Spice.
And you were worried that Wally wouldn't get that Auto Dry win in the 83 car tomorrow? Are you in today?
I'll be honest. I'm pretty proud of my teammate there. He, for no practice and to go out there and run a 14.2, he really, really stepped it up. So this broadcasting thing doesn't work out. Maybe you'll have a career driving a race car.
Very nice. Wally's already gone out. Smoke will actually go out last day. Final car. Advantage, disadvantage for you?
I'm thinking it's an advantage because I got to sleep a little longer. But no, I don't know. It's we heard all the guys early talking about how slick the track was because of the Hoosier rubber from the sports cars last night. But I keep watching this sun here. If the sun will go back in the clouds, I think we're going to be just fine. But I don't know if we'll get the pole or not. I doubt we will. But the good thing is our car's really, really consistent. So as long as we can start in the first 3 or 4 rows, I'm going to be pretty happy with it.
That's Tony Stewart. Steve?
Off a huge win at the Brickyard. Justin Labonte's on the racetrack. His dad, Terry, the all-time leader in wins here with 4 in the Busch Series.
Working with that new crew chief, Harold Holly. 26 quickest for Justin. Minute 15:13. Just a good, solid lap. He was 28th quickest in yesterday's practice.
Labonte, Justin's uncle. Don't forget, Bud Pole qualifying is coming up next. Fresh off his win at Indy, Tony Stewart heads for the track where he's won 2 of the last 3 races. Bud Pole qualifying up next, and it's live from Watkins Glen here, only on Speed. Brian Vickers in the 5 car. He is the 7th different driver to get behind the wheel of that race car this year.
It'll be interesting to see whether standing around and talking to the likes of Scott Pruitt and Boris Said will help his qualifying effort, or whether it will negatively have an impact.
Well, I don't know. They're talking about restrictor plate racing.
You believe that?
No.
I don't either.
I'd have been picking those boys clean for
right
road
before
course.
qualifying here at Watkins Glen. Not sure about that one now. Brian in the 5 car, he was 24th quickest. You said that he's the 7th different driver to be in this car, but this is the number, the car that he carried to that 2003 Busch Series championship a couple of years ago.
And assuming he's quick enough to get in the show, this would be his first NASCAR Busch Series road course race.
This will be his 4th start of 2005. The other 3 starts, they've all been top 10 qualifying efforts. And talked to Jerry Nadeau the other day. Jerry's starting to work with some of the younger development drivers that's working with his 5 car, Blake Feast, Boston Reed. It was good to see Jerry. I think he's even been spotting a little bit for those guys.
Jerry was injured a couple of years ago in a practice wreck at the Richmond International Raceway driving the 01 car. So, as you said, Larry Mack, great to see him back. Brian Vickers jumps up to 5th. Nice run.
Looks like that top 10 qualifying will stay intact.
John Roberts is standing by with Robbie Gordon.
You know, Steve, Robbie Gordon had to make this race on time, and as we get a couple raindrops falling on us here, Robbie, but you did that, you made it on time, and then some, just barely edging out Ryan Newman.
Yeah, you know, very important for us to get in the show with the Red Bull Chevy. Had a lot left on the table, I got to be honest. Left just a ton sitting there, at least a half a second. So looking forward to going back out now with the Cup car, knowing what how the Busch car ran. Pretty similar on setups, pretty similar with some of the things we did. So look forward to going and qualifying the Jim Beam Cup car in a little while.
So now when you come here, Robbie, with both your situations, you got to qualify on time. You can't really hang it all out on the racetrack, can you?
Well, you know, if it rains out Cup, we're in because we're high enough up in points. And then on the Busch Series, I guess we're in because of winning a race last year as a team owner. So we kind of can make both races. Even if it starts to sprinkle and stays to rain here, we're still in the race.
All right, Robbie Gordon, thanks a lot. Steve, Robbie's safe if the rain comes or if it doesn't.
And I was not sure about the Busch Series. He pretty much answered the question. Of course, won at Richmond, Virginia last year.
Did his homework right there, guys. He knows what's going on. Let's take a look at Paul Menard right now in the 11 car, and he got in there a little aggressively, had that car bouncing around through the chicane.
I'll tell you what, Jeff, he has really improved. That team has worked their way into the 10th spot in the point standings. The last 9 races, 7 top 5s, or 7 top 10s and 3 top 5s.
And I think a lot of that has to do with seat time and communication with his team, because, you know, Paul had been kind of like a journeyman. He'd run for several different, other team owners like Andy Petrie, and I think getting with a group that believe in him and allows him to have the right kind of equipment with DEI has just, you know, helped him tremendously as far as his ability to kind of like improve as a driver. And I mean, he's got some talent. He is a fast race car driver, and he gets the job done.
And so much talk about what I was going to be going to own at DEI next year. Paul Menard ends up 5th quickest in an 11 car. I talked to his crew chief, Dan Stillman. He said, right now, we do know we will run the entire 2006 Busch Series schedule with hopes of running maybe 5, 6, or 7 Nextel Cup races.
Very, very similar to what Martin Truex Jr. started doing for DEI.
Don't forget, Bud Pole qualifying headed your way as soon as we're done here with Busch Pole qualifying.
Jeff, I just believe, like we speculated earlier, not to really Martin Truex Jr.'s advantage. This racetrack is getting good right now. The sun has really not popped out. We've had 47 cars go out and put rubber down on the racetrack. I think it's really getting to its prime right now as far as for these Busch cars.
It's definitely a plus right now. Instead of being a negative going out late, that's really paid off for the guys who drew a big number during this qualifying round. And one of the guys that may benefit from it, we haven't said a whole lot about it, but Scott Pruitt is a guy you better not underestimate in this 4 car. He can be the guy that can actually break his own track record, which was set back in 2001.
The last time the Busch Series cars were here.
Got 3 Trans Am titles. Won the Rolex 24 Hours race at Daytona 3 times.
21st quickest in practice. I talked to the owner of this car, Fred Biaggi. Just always enjoyed visiting with Fred, and Fred was starting to smile a little bit. Certainly won by having Scott Pruitt in his car, but Kevin Hamlin has really been giving this car some pretty solid runs here over the last few weeks. And I think the big difference in this car has been Chip Ganassi has put Matt Chambers over there to look after this car. And I think that's made a big difference.
And one other thing, to me, we've heard some of the other drivers, these road course ringers, they say, that have been driving here today, had to kind of tippy-toe around here to get into this race. This guy is solidly into the race, so he can kind of like let it all hang out. He knows he's going to race today.
Looks like a pretty solid lap for Scott.
Good enough for 12th. So Casey Kane still on the pole, followed by Robbie Gordon and Ryan Newman. Martin Truex Jr. and Paul Menard, his teammate.
We have 5 cars left to qualify, so you better believe people like Ryan Newman, Boris said, they're hoping those 5 cars get that qualifying in, because just remember, it's not an official qualifying session unless every car attempts to qualify.
We have seen a few sprinkles, but for the time being, the track is, or the rain holding off, track is dry enough to complete qualifying, we hope.
See the Nextel Cup cars lined up. See the 11 car there, the FedEx car. Terry Labonte, we've been talking about him. He'll be driving that car here this weekend and maybe even some additional races. As you mentioned, I think, Steve, Jason Leffler was released. Terry Labonte, as well as Busch Series regulars Denny Hamlin, J.J. Yaley, be sharing the duties of this car the remainder of the year. Terry had a good run in that car back at Infineon in Sonoma back in June.
There's the man who's second in NASCAR Busch Series points, Clint Boyer. 85 points behind Martin Truex Jr.
He only has one other road course start. That was at Mexico, but he did what you're supposed to do when you go to a road course, especially as a rookie. He qualified 13th. He stayed on the racetrack. Nothing tore up. They had good pit strategy, and he ended up finishing 7th. Stayed out of trouble.
He got into turn 1 a little bit hot there, guys. Smoked the back tire again. A little bobble right there coming up out of the S's out on the back straightaway. He's got his hands full right now.
It looks like he's slowed it down, Jeff.
Probably thought took a deep breath and said, I got to slow this bad boy down and get control of it. But he is still fighting that car through the chicane.
He has his hands full right now. This is not going to be a very good lap. Remember, he comes in here second in points, just 85 points behind Martin Truex Jr. Right now, Martin Truex Jr. sitting in the 4th spot.
And it's going to be tough right now for him to gain any ground on Martin Truex Jr. unless Martin has problems if he has to wind up starting way back in the field, I'm afraid.
Well, you heard him talk about it. I mean, what these guys will have to do, Gil Martin, the crew chief, they're going to have to try to pull some strategy and get him up to the front and come out of here with a good, solid finish.
Once again, going to that final corner, I saw the right front tire smoke a little bit hard on the brakes.
Switch motors.
Got an engine problem.
Yeah, sounded like you said switch motors. And
what happened? I don't know. I think I hit second gear up just in the 4th.
And what he's saying right there, Larry, he went to go to 4th and went to 2nd instead.
And that's probably where maybe a lot of that smoke came from. So right now he's 46th quickest. Remember, this is an impound race. They changed that engine. He's going to be at the rear of the field anyhow. Why not?
And what happens, to make sure I understand it, when you do that, a lot of times the piston will come up and tag the valve. Everything just kind of gets slung together, and that's where you have your problem.
Well, 4 drivers are left to take a shot at Casey Kane. The last one will be a threat. His name, Tony Stewart. Speed Channel's coverage of NASCAR Busch Series qualifying from Watkins Glen International is brought to you by Mitchum, with you all the way. Kim Crosby in the 26 car went out to make her qualifying run, and she did not complete it. Let's take a look at what happened.
Well, we've been seeing a lot of cars loose on the exit of the corner. This is coming off that left-hander turn 6. She gets all the way off the racetrack and spins out. And she'll come around to complete her lap, but to no avail, because what's one driver's misfortune, she will not make this show.
Carries a lot of speed in there, gets a little behind the corner. But again, Larry, that was her first lap on the racetrack. She didn't get any practice yesterday.
And that locks Matt Kobieluk into the field.
So now that we have about 3 drivers left to qualify, the drivers that will be watching closely, of course, Casey Kane in the 6 car that's on the pole, but right now Ron Fellows, the 43 car, he'll be watching closely as well, because he's the car sitting on the bubble right now. That was Jeff Spraker, the 63 car that we were seeing out there on the racetrack. See him right here. And he's another car that had no practice yesterday. It's to the entrance of the inner loop.
And what NASCAR has done, he'd already started to make his first lap, warm-up lap, to get ready to come to the green. And when that car spun out, they were able to stop him. So hopefully he'll be able to get the momentum going through the loop area, come back around and make his qualifying lap without any kind of issues.
Wanting to make sure turn 6 is in good shape.
So Casey Kane is the pole sitter, but he is holding his breath, because the last driver to take time here is Tony Stewart, the defending Cup race winner here at the Glen. There's Casey.
Already has 3 Busch Series pole earlier this year. They were all right there together almost.
Yeah, Casey won the pole at Phoenix, Richmond, and Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Winner back at Texas, driving the 38 car earlier in the year in the Busch Series.
And got his first Cup win at Richmond.
And it's just, to me, it's amazing when you look at his performance in that 9 car last weekend at Indianapolis. They make the announcement on Saturday. How many times have we seen this in our sport? They make the announcement that Casey Kane, Tommy Baldwin had signed long-term agreements with Ray Evernham. You see Ray right over his shoulder right there. And they go out on Sunday and almost win the race and probably have one of their better performances of the year, other than maybe the win at Richmond.
And how about Jeffrey Bodine there in the background talking to Ray Evernham? There he is, and Ryan Newman.
Never went on the gas. Pulled down with the banking to come off.
Jeff Hammond mentioning that the Bodines from nearby Chemung, New York.
And back in the late 80s or early mid-90s, when you went to a road course, whether it was here, Sonoma, Riverside, you knew that man right there was going to be a threat to win the race. He was the guy, Paul Andrews, his crew chief, they were the first group to come here and run their own race in Nextel Cup. They pitted on lap 30. They pitted on lap 60, whether it was caution or green. Everybody went, what in the world are they doing?
They went to Victory Lake.
That's exactly what they did at lap 90.
Yep.
Jeffrey won here in 1996. Butt pole qualifying is up next. Rusty Wallace checking in with Kenny Schrader.
He'll be making his final Nextel Cup start here at Watkins Glen.
Terry Labonte in the 11 car of Joe Gibbs this weekend.
And this is the first time, we talked about this in the beginning of the show, the first time that the Nextel Cup cars have been to a road course in an impound procedure, so a little different for everyone.
As Jeff Spraker gets going, now how different will that be, Larry, in terms of preparation, the overall weekend?
I think you heard Greg Biffle talk about it earlier. If there's a place it would be the simplest to do, it would be here, because you did not change your race car that much from qualifying to race setup. At Indianapolis last week, once they made that an impound race, I talked to Booty Barker, crew chief for Mike Bliss. They spent 5.5 hours changing that car over to race trim for the impound procedure. Not that many changes here at a road course.
Jeff Spraker, then the 63 car, just taking the green. This is his first lap on this racetrack this year.
Jeff, I was thinking about the impound procedure yesterday. The one thing that it pretty much takes out of practice is something that we always was a part of doing. The minute practice started on Saturday, getting ready to race at Infineon back in June, you always want to run your car out of fuel to see how much fuel you can pick up. So now these teams really didn't have enough time yesterday to do that in the Busch Series or in the Nextel Cup.
You have to be a little bit on the conservative side, and fuel mileage is critical at all these road courses. Watching Jeff Spraker right there. He's run this particular car up here before in a Busch North race. Has got some experience here at the Glen, but like I say, no practice laps for him. It's going to be pretty tall order if he's able to get this car in here without coming up here and doing any kind of testing. It's almost impossible.
He needs to better a minute 15:40 to beat Ron Fellows. Right now, Ron Fellows in the 43 car, he's the car on the bubble of the go or go homers, and that's the car that Jeff Spraker has to zero in here on this qualifying run.
Spraker made a start here in June of 1995.
Goes off turn 7. Checker flag. Let's see what Jeff can do on this lap. It will not be quick enough to knock Ron Fellows, so Jeff Spraker will go home, and Ron Fellows in the 43 car will be in this show later on this afternoon.
Scheduled up next, Steve Grissom in the 49 car. Casey Kane, still the pole setter.
We have Steve Grissom and Tony Stewart, as we mentioned, the very final car to go. This is Steve Grissom here in the 49 car.
Grissom, a former series champion.
Steve Grissom technically is a go-or-go homer, but he is a past champion, so he is guaranteed, most recent past champion, so he's guaranteed a spot in the show. Most recent past champion that's not in the top 30 in owner points. Steve was 43rd quickest in practice yesterday.
Casey Kane will have his eye on Tony Stewart, the last driver out of the 33 car.
It's a little wide coming through the inner loop. This long sweeping right-hander. Turn 5 just goes forever. Up the short chute where most of the cars, they will probably turn the most RPMs, as a lot of them we mentioned earlier, they will stay in 3rd gear up through there.
Back over to turn 11, catch 2nd gear, as you said earlier, and make a hard run here off of turn 11, back to start-finish line.
.44th quickest for Steve Grissom, minute 17:14, but once again he will be in the show under the past championship provision.
The last driver out is going to be Tony Stewart in the number 33 car, driving for Kevin Harvick, Kevin and Delana Harvick. Casey Kane is the pole sitter for now. Kane and Ray Evernham got their fingers crossed.
It's been a long wait for this 6 car.
Now, did you notice right there that Ray Evernham had that trusty crew chief watch, and he's getting ready to put Tony Stewart on the clock?
And Tony in the 33 car, he was 10th quickest in practice earlier today, or yesterday. It'll be his 10th start in this car this season. Won at Daytona back in February, the Busch Pole at Fontana. Ray Evernham and Casey Kane watching closely. Tony goes off into turn 1, heavy braking in 2nd gear, grabbing 3rd gear before he gets to the S's in turn 2.
Car takes a big slide right through there, but Tony does a good job with it, fighting it up to the S's just a little bit.
He's on top of that wheel, grabbing high gear before this turn 4 right-hander. Tony doing triple duty this weekend, ran in the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series last night, as well as the Busch race this afternoon and the Nextel Cup race.
Gets a lot of air underneath that left front tire as he comes through the chicane.
I think he had both left tires up in the air. That's what it looked like.
He was going for it, I can tell you that right now. Looks really good through turn 5.
Right around the bottom, right where you want to be.
And hard back in the gas, too.
His time in practice yesterday was a minute 13:99. So he would have to pick up about close to a second from that practice yesterday to knock Casey Kane off the pole.
So Ray Evernham and Casey Kane looking on.
He does it.
Oh, gosh.
With a new track record, minute 12:85.
121.069 miles per hour. Tony Stewart does it. His 2nd pole in the Busch Series this year. Got one at California back in February.
And he picked over a second up from what he ran in practice yesterday.
And the machine just keeps on going.
I know he tested his Nextel Cup car up here, and I talked to a lot of the teams that were up here when he was testing. I said, how'd your test go? They said, good, but we wasn't near as fast as that 20 car.
So the last driver out knocks Casey Kane off the pole. Tony Stewart, 121.069 miles per hour. The only driver under 73 seconds.
And Jeff, we were talking earlier, you would think with a qualifying session starting at 9 a.m. Eastern time, an early draw would be an advantage, but I just think because of the rain yesterday, the Grand Am race last night, I just think the optimum draw was late in the session, especially with the sun really never coming out.
I think you're exactly right, Larry. I think that's a good way to look at it as we take a look here at the 33 car one more time. fastest lap there. I mean,
the Verizon fastest lap. Last driver out, Jeff.
Again, he knew what he had to do, and Tony Stewart got up on that wheel like he does so many times, and he brought it to these guys and was able to break the track record on top of everything else.
The car turned good through the middle of every corner, left and right, and had that good forward bite. Didn't have that loose look up on the exit of any of the corners. He broke the track record by 1/100th of a second that was set by Scott Pruitt the last time the Busch cars were here back in 2001.
Let's take a look at the starting grid for the race. You can see on NBC later today.
And guys, take a look at this. Tony Stewart, Casey Kane. At Richmond, they battled each other. Last week at Indy, they battled each other. Today, they're going to start side by side and continue to have that same battle.
Teammates on row 3, Martin Truex Jr., our points leader, as well as Paul Menard.
And our Doberman with a hand grenade in row 5 with Joe Nemechek.
Scott Pruitt back on row 7, Dale Jarrett in row 8. Row 9, Jorge Getters and Chris Cook. And Wally Dallenbach.
Yeah,
back
way to go, Wally.
10.
Great run by Wally Dallenbach. Cup veteran Jeff Burton along with the youngster Paul Wolf.
Reed Sorensen back here on row 13, but Jamie McMurray back here on row 15. I'm sure he'll be coming toward the front.
See a lot of Cup drivers in the show later on this afternoon here for the Busch race.
Ron Fellows does get in the race here. He's row 17, veteran road racer, and currently the most active winner here at Watkins Glen with 3 wins.
3 wins.
See, Clint Boyer, we talked about him. Sounds like those guys may be changing in the engine. Remember, he's second in points, and Martin Truex Jr. sitting up there qualified in the 5th position.
Let's take the drivers who did not qualify. 53 teams here for 43 spots. Tough break for Elliott Sadler.
That's the most notable. Not to make this show, he's had a rough weekend with the wreck yesterday.
Tony Stewart, the last driver out to qualify, bumps Casey Kane off the pole. John Roberts is with smoke.
Hey, Tony's getting some congratulations from his crew around here. Smoke, man, when things are going right, they just keep on rolling, don't they?
Yeah, and boy, this Kevin Harvick Inc. team, they did an awesome job. It's first time I've worked with Mark, our new crew chief, and they're just doing a great job. I mean, we're working really well together already. We only got to work one session with each other yesterday, and he made some changes for today, and car's right on. So a little bit free like everybody else is. So when we take the tape off, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Tough position to be in, though, being the last car going out when you know what everybody, you know what you have to beat, but you have to be a little bit careful when you're on these road courses.
Yeah, but I mean, it's no different than, going on the Cup weekends. We got to do the same thing. So, the good thing is that I guess, the guys that went out pretty early probably were at a disadvantage because of the Hoosier rubber that we ran on the sports cars last night. But the car was awesome. I mean, going out last probably helped us a little bit. I was a little worried about, somebody dropping some oil there about 10 cars before us, but the track crew did a great job getting it cleaned up and got this Old Spice car on the pole now.
Congratulations, Tony.
Thank you.
All right, Tony Stewart will go out 23rd in Cup, and Steve, it's a new track record. Not by much, but Smoke's got it.
And boys, let's not forget who was fastest in Cup practice yesterday.
Let's see. Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart. Bud Pole qualifying is headed your way. For Jeff Hammond, Larry McReynolds, John Roberts, and Dave Burns, I'm Steve Burns. Thanks for being with us. Don't go anywhere. Bud Pole qualifying is up next here on Speed.